Okay, so it's 9:04. So let's officially start. I'm going to move over this way and make sure everybody can see that we are recording this. You heard that as we went on. You have the ability to mute yourselves and to shut your video off. What we put up on YouTube will only show the people on video and without your names. Everybody else is anonymous, and this is partly to let the people know that are watching now on YouTube sometime in the future that there are more than 6 people on this call, but you're only seeing the handful that are using the video. So with that said, we can start. The couple updates for you guys that I have. One, last week we talked about the executive orders, the new executive orders that are restarting the timelines for permits and for appeals and for relicensing of LSPs, in our case, I'm most interested in, probably also hairdressers and other people as well with professional licenses. And we are in the process of finalizing updated guidance for wayside cleanup along the lines of what we talked about. So we expect that we'll have that out sometime in the next week, and we can talk about that next week in more detail and go through it. It's along the lines of what we've talked about. Kind of the expectations are that work, we know, and you have told us that work has been moving ahead, and you're getting work done. We've only had a couple handfuls of notices of delay for COVID. So as we move ahead and things open up, our expectations are that people will be meeting the deadlines as they normally would, with a kind of big asterisk that in the unique circumstances that you do run into, that you can't get something done because of COVID, and the need to protect the health of either the workers doing the response actions or the people that live or work at the site, then we understand that, and we would we'd say, contact the regional office and talk about that particular situation. There will be, the example I used last week is if you need to do indoor air sampling at a nursing home, and they're not letting anybody in the building, then that would present a problem. There are bound to be unique situations like that, and we can take that into account. But across the board, our expectations are that things are picking up again. We're able to do our work, you're able to do your work, and that the deadlines should come and go as usual. So look for that next week. Come back and we can talk about it. On the PFAS front, the MCL proposed MCL for PFAS, a couple months delayed, is undergoing final review. So we've been through this drill before with wayside cleanup regulations. It's no different for our other programs. As it moves up the chain, it may go faster or slower depending upon competing priorities and people's ability to kind of do the briefings and the reviews, but it's in its final processes, and we should, I would expect that we would see a final MCL in the pretty near future. That dovetails nicely with the work that we're doing for sampling public and private wells for PFAS. Remember, we got $8.4 million last year. We're going to be scrambling to spend that, particularly since we had the COVID kind of delay thrown in there. But the Bureau of Water Resources is going to be directing kind of that sampling program. They've contracted with UMass Amherst and Lowell together to help coordinate those efforts. And I think the public water supply sampling already there's a steady stream of public water supplies that are stepping forward and asking us do this free sampling for them. Once the MCL comes out and they're facing a requirement to sample, I'm sure that they will step forward even quicker to take advantage of the free sampling that we're offering for them. On the private well side, the expectation is that water sampling kits will be sent out to private well owners to do the sampling themselves and send back to the lab. Somebody is making noise that we can hear. So sending it back to the lab. So we hope that at least in the first round of that sampling, there will be no need for a lot of direct contact, and that will go forward as well. And UMass will be working with various stakeholder groups and us to help identify the wells, private wells that we sampled for that. So that is on a good track at the moment, and we should be seeing that. What might be of interest to you, and certainly is of interest to the wayside cleanup program, is what happens when some of these wells, whether the public wells or private wells, come back with significant hits of PFAS, and kind of what happens for site identification and kind of bringing those into the 21E program as necessary. So,
Paul?
Yes, Matthew.
Okay, so, with Ms. Denley and Mr. Accolini and a host of excellent presenters, we've done this course on PFAS sampling because it became apparent to me a long time ago that sampling for PFAS was fraught with a whole bunch of possibilities for particularly false positives. Mm-hmm. So with this sampling of drinking water at home, and because the drinking water numbers are so low, what measures are the department taking to try to avoid false positives? Because obviously if you get back a whole bunch of positive results, it's going to be a concern, right?
Yes, and that's one of the things that we've been weighing throughout all of this. And so we're trying to balance, there is a risk of false positives. What we have seen in sampling results that people have sent us, where private well owners, and quite a few of them have been coming in now, private well owners have sampled, have found positive results and sent it back to us. We have gone out and have resampled ourselves. And what we have found is that where the private parties have done their own sampling and found something, when we've gone back, we've found similar levels. So we're not seeing a huge problem in false positives. There will be training videos available that will link to, there will be instructions in the sampling kits. Obviously, we'll be urging people, making them aware of that they have to take special care for this. And I think the key part of it all is that if we do get our hits probably above a particular some level, I'm not sure whether that's been identified yet, but if we get positive hits, then we will arrange for that to be resampled. So okay. We are not making decisions upon one single sample taken by a private party. We'll go back, and really that mirrors what we do for public water supplies. That in their sampling for PFAS, if they come up with a hit, our next step is do confirmatory sampling. We don't make them do public notice. We don't make them react based upon that one initial sample. It needs to be confirmed before we'll take that action.
And so what the other things was, there seemed to be a lack of, part of the reason for the course was there was a lot of concern because people didn't have a lot of guidance regarding sampling and procedures and things like that. So it sounds like the department has got this maybe well underhand with your grant and all the sampling you're doing. Would you be sharing some of that with the community?
I'm sure we will. So a lot of this is being done through the water program. So I'll check in with them and kind of see what's available now, and then as it becomes available, to the public, we'll share that as well.
Thank you.
Mhm. So that's all pretty exciting. We'll be keeping a lot of people busy here. The other thing I've mentioned before is that MassDEP has been having a series of discussions about equity issues and diversity in the agency, within the agency, and how we deal with our stakeholders in the public, and kind of initiating a process to kind of talk about how we can do better, and particularly for I'll talk about kind of external issues, how we can make what we do and the people we talk to be more diverse, be more inclusive of all of the stakeholders that are potentially affected by our work. Here in Wayside Cleanup, we are, in the grand scheme of environmental issues, we are no longer the young, sexy program that we were back in the early 1990s. And as such, we certainly enjoy having a dedicated stakeholder group that we talk to. Our Wayside Cleanup Advisory Committee, the members of the committee themselves, and as you know, our audience, whether it's live or online, when we live stream our meetings, are engaged. They are I guess we view them as colleagues. They participate. It's a congenial discussion, and I find it to be very productive. I cannot say that it is representative of a wide range of interests, however, that we have the LSPs, we have the PRPs, and we often have individual, a spattering of individual people that might be affected by a particular site, and their interest, comes and goes. But we're lucky to have Linda Siegel representing more of the affected community aspect, but it's a struggle for us to maintain that wide range of inputs so that we hear from everybody. And as regulators, we want people shouting in both of our ears. We want to be in the position of balancing interests and balancing the environment and development and all of that. But to do that, we need to equally hear everything. And we struggle to do that. And there have been times over the past 20, 25 years where I feel that we have, the department not only has to play the role of kind of the balancer, but we also have to play the role of advocating for the environmental side or the community side, the affected individual side, because there's lack of representation of that. So we're going to have those discussions across DEP. The easy pickings kind of on things to do is certainly looking at our advisory committees and who participates and try to expand that. So I would like to set some time aside next week on kind of talking about more specifically in a little bit more depth how we can do that for the Wayside Cleanup Program, not only the advisory committee, and I don't make, in our meetings, advisory committee meetings, and like here, I don't make a lot of distinctions between people that sit on the advisory committee and people that are sitting in the audience. We try to have everybody talk, everybody participate, everybody's opinions have value, and everybody can have good, interesting, useful insights. But there certainly is value in having kind of the officially recognized as being advisory committee members, and people should, how do we make people feel welcome to show up at the meetings and feel like they are comfortable participating in those meetings? Frankly, I think we can be an intimidating lot. In our big conference room in Boston, for somebody that is concerned about a particular site in their neighborhood, or about this kind of environmental contamination in general, I think it's hard for people to come in and sit down and be surrounded by all of us. So I would like to hear kind of your ideas and your experiences on how to bring more people to the table, how to make people feel that they are welcome in these situations, in these meetings, and make us all more kind of accessible for all of our stakeholders. So maybe we can set some time aside next week to talk about that in particular, and hear your ideas. I wanted to throw it out there so you can start thinking about it.
Paul,
Yep,
as
Matthew.
a non-committee member,
Mhm.
sorry to butt in again, but
This is exactly what I mean. Yep.
But the LSPA, I believe, still does collect from members in their annual survey, members who are willing to serve pro bono
Mhm.
to help environmental justice, whatever you want to call them, groups. Is that something that the department is able to get out to people who might be interested in participating, but not know? I mean, that there is this expertise available to them that might help them with this?
Yeah, I think we can certainly do a better job of doing that, and making that available. Another thing that we are doing, we've mentioned before, and is that we're going to be starting up the technical assistance grants. So it's not just kind of relying upon pro bono, but giving people some resources to actually, say, do their own sampling, to uh, to participate substantively in particular sites as well. So kind of the range of things that we want to look at is on the big picture level, how do we get broader participation in advisory committees and reg development and policy development? So kind of all interests are kind of taken into account there, but also the technical assistance grants and the LSP program for pro bono work gets to a finer grain issue of, at any particular site, how do we best serve all of the interests that are involved in that site? And that includes the people that live on the site or adjacent to the site, who have concerns about the environmental impacts of the contamination that's there now, that may remain there after the cleanup is complete, and kind of having access to LSP pro bono work or technical assistance grants kind of helps with that, but kind of that outreach of letting people know that that's available, or even kind of giving the access so that they feel that kind of that's an option to participate like that.
I guess what I was thinking as was more that, perhaps there are community groups, for example, who may not have a specific site in mind, but just be interested in the issues. And there might be a way to match up LSPs to those groups, and the LSPs who would be attending the Waste Site Cleanup Advisory Committee anyway, to be active representatives, much like we have representatives on your committee.
Yep. One thing that kind of struck me recently, as part of the PFAS MCL development, we were approached by, the department was approached by the Conservation Law Foundation and several other activist groups, and they really made a strong point that the department should do more outreach to affected communities. And so so part of that was, for example, trying to add an additional public hearing that was not in a DEP office, that was not in the middle of the day. We tried to do that. We held public hearing down on the Cape for when we were doing our regs, but kind of trying to take people's schedules into account, and trying to interact with and use groups like CLF and others to help reach activists or smaller groups that may not even be aware that this stuff is going on.
Okay, so I just, I didn't mean to monopolize the conversation. I apologize. I think it has been a strategic goal of the LSPA to try to increase the public awareness of what LSPs are and what they do anyway.
Yep.
So this may be a mutually beneficial outreach opportunity.
Yep, I hope so. And then let's see, the other thing on my list to talk about today, and it's mostly because I have a 10 o'clock meeting, so it was on my mind, is our record corrective action. And we've talked about this periodically over the course of
Paul, I can't hear you. I don't know if that's the case with everyone else.
Uh-oh.
Okay, you're back.
Okay.
It's freezing.
You're freezing up a little bit.
I'm freezing. Okay, I'm going to shut off my video.
Your router.
Yes. I'm going to shut off my video so you'll just hear my voice. Okay. There you go. And see my dog. So as I was saying, the last thing I wanted to touch base on was the record corrective action work. And we've talked about this in the past. Wayside Cleanup took over record corrective action about 10 years ago now. And at that time, we were working on what was known as the 2020 list, which was a long list of old RECR sites, mostly interim status sites that had been dealing with stuff that would become hazardous waste once RECR went into effect, but they declined to get permits, get licensed, and they were still on the RECR, the federal RECR books. And so the corrective action program, the 2020 list, was an effort by EPA to identify these sites, bring them into the system, get them evaluated, and if necessary, cleaned up. And when EPA was trying to get DEP to participate in that effort, the deal was struck that it would come over to the Wayside Cleanup program and we'd pull them into 21E, into the MCP, and use our privatized system to move these older sites through the system. And guess what? It's 2020. So the past year, we've been looking at kind of the success of that 2020 list, where we are. And the good news is that we've kind of moved most of those sites through the program, through having human exposures under control, groundwater migration under control, selection of remedy, and construction complete. Those are the four big beans that the EPA uses to measure movement and success of the corrective action program. And depending upon which one of those you look at, we're above 90% of the sites that were on the original list have kind of achieved those, and new endpoints, including ready for anticipated reuse, are being added, but those will be relatively simple to kind of get through the process as well. So the ones that are kind of recalcitrant, old, still on the list, are some of the, some of them have been transferred over to Superfund, Walton and Lonsbury, GE Pittsfield, the nuclear metal sites, Olin and Murphy's Waste Oil, were on the 2020 list and kind of moved off of that, so they don't count anymore. And there are a handful of not quite that large, but similarly complicated sites that prevent us from getting 100%. But overall, I think the combination of the 21E program being used as a mechanism to get the RECR corrective action work done has been very successful. And there's still some sites that we're working on that had permits that are closing out their permits or doing corrective action that are permitted that kind of weren't necessarily on the original 2020 list. But basically it's a pretty good combination of the two programs, and wanted to kind of update you on how that's standing and let you know kind of that the kind of bringing it into 21 worked pretty well. So since I've stopped talking now, I'll try putting my picture back up. So that's really all I had for talking today. Any questions you guys have?
It's Linda Siegel. I have a comment. So going back to where you were one topic ago with concerns about being more inclusionary and how to get more people involved. Let me just say that when the Conservation Law Foundation came forward about PFAS, the other group that made the presentation that day was from Toxics Action Center.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I wanted to bring that up right now is just to ask you folks whether you are aware that Toxics Action Center has rebranded itself.
Oh.
And it's now called Community Action Works. And it sent out a lot of communications, and I was just wondering if you folks are aware, because if not, then there are some disconnects in getting that information out. But they were written up by David Abel in the Globe a couple of times since the 4th of July, not per se, but because of issues related to COVID and exposures and, you know, the fact that justice communities have higher rates of infection with being more predisposed to respiratory issues and whatever. So Sylvia Brody, who's the executive director, was being interviewed a couple of times. So did you folks not receive information about TAC now being Community Action Works? No, okay.
I didn't.
Yeah. And the others haven't either? No. Okay. All right, thank you. I'll take that back to Sylvia and see if we can improve that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
well, and I think that's that kind of highlights what I was saying as well, that you know I'm sure other people at DEP probably are certainly aware of that, but the fact that you know I've worked with them in the past, and I was working with them in the drinking water program on the PFAS MCL
Yeah.
outreach, and yet kind of it you know, it flew right above me, and so it's kind of maintaining those contacts and kind of.
Well, I'm glad I asked. So
Yeah.
I'll get back to them so they'll make an improvement in getting that information out.
Yeah.
But staying in touch certainly, and I know they are very interested, obviously, in seeing the MCL come out and whatever. But
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So anything else? Any of our regional staff? I'm seeing Gerard now. So any updates that you want to DEP staff want to pass along? No. Okay then. If no other questions, no other issues, we can sign off for today and see you next week. You are all quiet. Okay. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you very much.